Welcome, YouTube users. This is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Riccardo. If you want to hear the entire show with intros, outros, and music, please go to Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, etc., wherever you listen to podcasts. And also, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Um, Please welcome to the show a guy I would call a lifetime musician who I've known for 20 years, I believe, Pete
Probably.
Cassani.
Woo!
Hi, Pete. How are
Steve,
you, man?
good, man. I'm good.
It
Good.
was,
Thanks for asking me to do this.
oh, my pleasure. It was a surprise running into you a few, maybe, I don't know, maybe was that a month ago? I don't remember how long ago, but when you were playing with the false positives.
It was like right after Thanksgiving, so it was like 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, pleasant surprise. And you guys rocked it out pretty good up there.
Thank you. Thanks. Good to be
So,
in Dave's, thing.
yeah, you do a lot. We're going to talk about everything you do. So you grew up in Long Island, right?
Levittown, New York. America's
Levittown.
first suburb. Yes.
What was that like?
Thousands of houses that are the same. Um, Twisty suburb. It was like the suburbs, like extreme suburbs. Um, Everybody was from New York City. Everybody was from like Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx. Everybody moved out of the city after World War II and bought these cookie cutter houses, little cookie cutter houses. And it was for me, it was the 70s, 60s, and 70s. So it was uh I thought it was dull. It was really dull. And um, it seemed like all we did was drink and drugs. Did a
Sounds
lot
like
of drinking,
most.
a lot of drugs. It's probably the same as everybody else in that time frame in the 70s and played music. We were all trying to play music. My friends anyway.
Yeah, we're
So
we're 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 around the same age, so I get that because I grew up in the suburbs of Boston. So,
okay.
I know what that's like. Every
Yeah, yeah.
weekend, get drunk, smoke weed, listen to whatever news come. It was a really good time too in the 70s because
Yeah.
every day it seemed like you discover a new great band.
It was a great record coming out every week or two. So I think we got used to that. We got used to, like, I remember when Dark Side of the Moon came out and everybody went and got Dark Side of the Moon. Or when uh, that Who song, the Who Are You record, whatever that record is, that came out and my friend got it and he had it on his boombox and he was, hanging out at the park, smoking pot and listening to Who Are You, or Led Zeppelin, In Through the Outdoor, when that came out. We were out in the woods camping. What we called camping was basically just an excuse to get trashed in the woods. And we were listening to In Through the Outdoor the whole weekend.
Did,
Yeah.
did you did you like put a good stereo system in your car? Because that seemed to be a prerequisite back then.
I didn't even have a car, but all my friends had their parents' cars. This is like high school. And yeah, everybody had cranking stereos with massive speakers, way, way bigger speakers than necessary.
I'm showing my age now, but I remember I had an 8-track player, and then
Yeah.
then when we all got cassette players, that was the big thing. Oh man, a
Yeah.
cassette deck, and
Wow.
you could. And this, I had the speakers too, man. You had to back then. So were you? When did you like get hip to music, and what were you listening to back then? Everything, or was there something specific that caught your ear? Like I always tell people that when I first heard Black Sabbath and Queen, those were the two bands that really opened my eyes to what was going on. Were there any for you?
Yeah, it was the Beatles. It was the Beatles. Yeah. And I was like 11 or 12. I was in the Boy Scouts and this me and this other kid and this we just really liked the Beatles and we used to go to the Boy Scout meeting and then we'd be walking home in our Boy Scout suits, singing Beatles songs at the top of our lungs. And we just yeah, the Beatles were the thing. I eventually got kicked out of the Boy Scouts, but uh yeah, the Beatles was the first one, I would say. And I remember way back, my parents had the Banana Splits. They had the Banana Splits record, and I remember that. The Monkees, I remember that. Yeah, but
Partridge Family.
yeah, Partridge Family, all that stuff. And the Beatles were the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the Beatles really were the first one for me too. But I think when I heard those other bands, I kind of got more, I was more older when I heard Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and then
Yeah,
Queen.
that blew your mind.
I
Yeah.
remember the first time I heard Queen, I think the first song I heard was Keep Yourself Alive. I was like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Queen was so when I grew up in high school and on Long Island, the big bands were the Grateful Dead, Marshall Tucker, um, the Outlaws, Leonard Skinner, the Allman Brothers, all those bands, those jammy pot smoking bands. And I liked Queen, which I never told anybody about because it was like a guilty pleasure, you
Yeah,
know?
it was.
And they were incredible. It was like the secret. Like Queen was incredible. Led Zeppelin, of course. Led Zeppelin was probably the band that blew my mind. Also, Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was like otherworldly. Nobody played like him. He was just like the way he played guitar was
Oh
just
yeah.
otherworldly. Like how do you play all those notes on one guitar and have them all sound so like they all make sense? Everything. It's just wow. So I'd
We
say
were
Jimi.
spoiled. We were spoiled because all those great bands all came out within like a 20-year period. You know, it was incredible. The
Yeah.
60s and the 70s were just phenomenal. When did you start playing, Pete?
Uh, when I was again, these kids I met in the Boy Scouts, they were, I say the Boy Scouts, but we were really bad kids. We did a lot of bad things, and we all eventually got kicked out. But two of the kids in the Boy Scouts, they played guitar. They were taking guitar lessons, and they were learning Beatles songs. And I played piano.
Oh, really?
I was bored with it. I didn't practice. I didn't like any of the songs. This guy was trying to teach me classical music and I just wasn't into it. And then when I met these kids, they were playing Beatles songs and I was blown away. So I would go over their house and just watch them play the guitar. And then they would show me a few things. Like Back in the USSR was one of the first songs they learned and they showed me it. And so I'd go over there and they would take guitar lessons and so I was probably like 14, 13, 14. And I was trying to play piano and we were going to like have a band and I'd be the piano player. And I just wasn't into the piano. So I just started playing the guitar and I started figuring out songs on my own
Did
with my
you
ear.
did you have an acoustic guitar or did you go right straight to electric?
I had a acoustic guitar with a broken back and nylon strings. It was a complete mess. And then eventually I got a really cheap copy of a Gibson Les Paul, like a cheap knockoff of a Gibson Les Paul, which was a Univox Les Paul. And I played that. And they were both terrible guitars, but I didn't know any better and I played the hell out of them. And I just started to figure out songs on my own. And these kids couldn't do that. They had to take the lesson and learn from the teacher. And I started just learning them on my own because I didn't have lessons. And that's how I started to learn how to play guitar. Just listen to records, put the needle back, play it again, put the needle back, play it again, try to sound out the notes, and then learn the songs that way. And
You had
that's
the
how
ear. You
I
had the
had the
ear.
ear, and that's what
Yeah.
saved me. Yeah. I had no lessons, but I learned with a lot of bad habits and I took the long way around, but I eventually learned how to play.
Was there a band in Long Island? The first band? Did you form a band at a young age, or were there several? Or
I not really. I just jam with a bunch of guys, and we were terrible. Oh, there was one band. All right, in 10th grade, I ended up playing with these two guys. They were like a lot older than me. They were in 12th grade, and they were really into Kiss. And I was not into Kiss. Kiss was like my little brother's band, you know. It was like a toy band. But they were really into Kiss, and the guitar player, it was just a guitar player and a drummer. And we eventually called the band Bullseye, because that was a kind of acid. And so Bullseye Acid. So anyway, these two guys were complete drug addicts, alcoholics by 12th grade. And we basically used to meet in at their house in the garage. And I was the rhythm guitar player, and we would play Kiss songs. And we would just play the entire Kiss Alive one album.
Oh.
And I play rhythm guitar, no bass player, no vocals. We just played the songs, guitar. It was all about the guitar. It was all about Ace Frehley and lead guitar, and that's it. Yeah.
I think a lot of high
first
schools.
band.
Yeah, I think a lot of high schools will like that. My high school, everyone was into Kiss. That's why what you said before really hit home with me about Queen. I liked Queen, but I didn't really want to talk about it that much.
No.
But I did go see Queen when they
Yeah.
came through town, and the guys that came with me were like, "Oh my God, these guys are really good." I mean, they were better than Kiss live by a mile.
Oh.
Kiss had the show, you know, but Queen played. You know, they could play.
Queen could play, yeah.
Did you stay in Long Island long after that? Did you go to school, college? Did you finish high
college.
school?
Yeah, I went to community college out of high school because I didn't want to be a gas station attendant. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I went to community college, and through that I transferred to an upstate school off Long Island. And I went upstate, where everybody on Long Island goes to college upstate. It seems like we all go to upstate New York.
SUNY something?
Yeah, SUNY, State University of New York. And like all my brothers and sisters, I come from a family of 6. They all went to Geneseo, Oneonta, New Paltz, Brockport. I went to Binghamton. Everybody went to those schools, and they were cheap back then, so anybody could go, and you just had to not fail out. And that's what I did. I went to school there.
Trying to think, Binghamton, is that near Albany?
It's closer to Pennsylvania. It's on the southern border of New York and Pennsylvania. It's not on the border, but it's a little bit up. So it's down there with Elmira, Cortland, and Elmira and whatever.
New York's a big state. People don't realize how big that state is.
Yeah, and that school was really hard. I didn't realize that school was really hard. I had to really work not to fail out of that school. And while I was there, I started playing with some guys, and we formed a band, and we play at keg parties, and like we once played at the pub, the school pub, so we did stuff like that. But we were just basically
covers.
Yeah, 60s and 70s covers, and just an excuse to drink and pick up girls. And it was great. It was great. And that was my first real band, I would say.
What was the name of that band?
It was a stupid name. It was called the D. Johnson Quartet, after somebody. I don't know who D. Johnson is. I don't even know if that was a person, but it was a 6-piece band that was called a quartet. It was just stupid. And the first name of the band was Shot, because we drank so much, we were always shot. and then we turned it to G. Johnson Quartet, and then everybody graduated. It was over.
You must have did all your drinking early, because I don't remember you as being a heavy drinker since I known you.
Yeah, no, I had I burned out early. Yeah. By the time I was 27, I was either going to join the 27 club, or I was going to stop doing that stuff. And thankfully I was able to pull out of it. Yeah.
So when you were in college, did you move to Boston? Like, tell me about that whole story. How did you end up in Boston?
So I went to college upstate New York, and then I graduated, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was supposed to be a journalist, and I had a job in the state, and that's in that town as a journalist for a while. And then, typically you would go from there, you would go somewhere else and work for a newspaper and become a journalist. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a journalist. I've been trying not to be a musician for the longest time because I thought that's stupid. That's crazy. Nobody makes it, and it's a thankless thing, and you're just gonna be broke your whole life and suffer and die. And that's it for being a
Sounds like
musician.
most of my guests. No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So I
you
was
gotta
like, all
love
right,
it, right? You gotta love it.
yeah,
You gotta love it.
exactly. So after I got out of college, I didn't want to be a journalist. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of had a feeling I wanted to play music, but I didn't know how to go about doing it. And a friend of mine moved to Boston, and he was working at the Scotch and Sirloin in Boston and pouring drinks for the Celtics. This is when the Celtics were big, 1986, 87. And so I moved up here from New York, and he was working in a restaurant. I was working in a restaurant. We were all working in restaurants, me and a couple other guys. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? And I lasted about 6 months, and it didn't go well. And I moved back to New York. I
You
just,
did.
yeah, I moved back to New York, and stayed home for a year and worked, doing landscaping and, construction type jobs. And then I saved my money, and I came back and I tried it again. I bought a car, and I came back to Boston in 87. And when I came back the second time, I was like, I'm not going to work in restaurants. I'm not going to get a job. I'm just going to play music, and I'm going to sink or swim doing it. And I bought one of those little street amps, and I started playing in the subway. And that's what I did. And I was scared shitless. I'd never played in front of people like that in my life. It was like the first time I started playing in front of people. It was like trial by fire. I just went down to Government Center with an acoustic guitar and started playing Rocky Raccoon and whatever I knew all the words to, which wasn't that many songs. And I was just a mess. And I figured it out. I remember the first time somebody gave me, some old guy, probably blue collar guy, stood there watching me play for a long time. And like, I don't know what was going on in his head. Was he skeptical of who the hell is this kid or whatever? But I was just playing away. And at the end of it, after a while, he was getting on the train. He came over to the guitar case, threw some money down, and got on the train. I never saw him again, but he gave me $20.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay. All right, maybe I'm onto something. Because prior to that, I was getting nothing, and I was getting pennies, and people were just ignoring me. And this guy gave me a little, a little encouragement. And then I just was playing. I learned a bunch of songs, and I was playing like all the time. And when it got warm out, I was playing in governments, outside Government Center, Park Street Station, Harvard Square, outside Grendel's restaurant. I was down at the Christopher Columbus Park in the North End. I was in Faneuil Hall. I played everywhere.
I got two questions for you. First one, where did you live in the Boston area when you moved up here?
The first time I lived in like this horrible dump of a place in Revere Beach.
Oh, wow.
Guys. Yeah, three other guys. And we did a lot of drinking at that place. We always ran out of oil, and we had to shave to go to work. We'd like boil water and shave with the hot water and then go to work. And we didn't even have any hot water. So I would go to the YMCA and take a shower. It was like that. And then when I came back, I was living on somebody's floor. I was sleeping on a friend's floor in the dining room, under the dining room table for about 3 months. until I found a place in Brookline down the
Oh,
block from where he lived that was like $175 a month.
wow.
Yeah. And this was 1987, 88. And I could afford that. I could make that in a weekend playing on the street. So one weekend was for rent, and the rest of the money was for just whatever I was, drugs and alcohol and whatever I needed to do. And yeah.
The other part, what the other question I had was, that's really interesting, all that, because you struggled, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
Boston, Cambridge has a long history of people playing in the subways, a lot of famous people. What
Yeah.
was it like? Did you have to find your territory and market? I mean, how was that? You had to compete with a lot of, I think right around the same time you were there, I know other people that were doing the same, like Patty Griffin used to play in the subway all the time in Harvard
Yeah.
Square, and a
Yep.
lot of people like that. So how did you get your space to do that? Did
Harvard
you need a
Square was
permit?
the subway in Harvard Square was really competitive. Everybody went down there. And so I didn't go there because I'm like, I don't want to fight to play in the subway. So I would stick to Boston. I would play in Park Street or Government Center. And um and there were so many people out playing that you would you started to know everybody. You started to know people, and you could like go up to them and say, are you gonna be here? How long are you gonna play? And sometimes they would say, I've been here for 2 hours, man. I'm good for another hour, and then you can have it. So I would stick around and then take that spot. Or somebody would be like, they just got there, they're not going anywhere for a while, and you don't want to stand around the subway, you want to play. So I would find sometimes I'd be in Washington Street Station, which it was cool, but people didn't have that much money.
Downtown Crossing?
Downtown
Yeah,
Crossing, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that's I
Did
got
you
robbed.
know?
I got robbed in
You got
Downtown
robbed?
Crossing.
Oh,
Yeah.
who robbed you?
Bunch of kids. They there was a bunch of them, and they waited till everybody left, and the train came, took everybody away, and then they walked by as a gang, and one of them just scooped all the money up. It was like really fast. And I had this guitar, this Gibson Les Paul, which is worth a lot of money.
It's a
And
beauty.
yeah, I know. This was my only guitar, so I had to play this. And I put the guitar down and ran after them and grabbed the kid by the neck. And I immediately felt that this kid was really big. He's bigger than me. And he just looked at me and he said, that's a nice guitar. Do you want to lose that too? And
Ooh,
I just let it go. But that,
wow.
considering how much I played on the streets of Boston, I was only really robbed maybe twice. And once was by a homeless guy that probably needed the money more than me. And
Yeah.
and like he just, it's easy for somebody to walk by and just grab money out of the case and keep walking. And I can't get them, I can't catch them, because I got a guitar and all this other stuff, you know.
Can't
So
stop in the middle of a song. I mean,
you could.
I know I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Did you get
But
to know a lot of other people that were doing the subways back then and the street stuff? Are you
yeah.
still friends with anyone from back then that was doing that?
Um, I haven't seen them in years because I haven't been down in the subway for like 30 years,
No, I mean, were there people that you knew that started there that ended up in bands that you got to know over the years?
Um, Scott Damgard met me on the street and said that when he met me, and I told him what I was doing, he quit his job and started doing it. Like he was like, wow, like I showed him the way. Um, I remember Mary Lou Lord.
Oh
I
yeah, Mary Lou
remember,
Lord did that for a long time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, she was a regular. And she would be down in Cambridge. She liked Harvard Square. Harvard Square was friendlier, Boston was tougher, but I kind of liked Boston because I don't want to compete with all these hippies in Cambridge. I wanted to just go play and when I want, where I want. And so I was mostly down in Park Street Station and out in the Boston Commons. I played in the Boston Commons a bunch. That was fun. There was a guy named Flathead that was really good. He played in Harvard Square and he had like a huge sound system and he would just jam for hours. He was a really good guitar player, played acoustic. I'm trying to remember people. Yeah, I can't remember.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Now the Peasants were the Velcro Peasants.
Yeah, we started in 1988, 87, 88, right around there.
Was that your first band in Boston?
Yes.
So you've been
Peasants.
a peasant for a long time, Pete.
My whole life. Yeah.
Now, I think I saw a video. I was watching some old stuff that I'd seen before, and you played this thing on Newbury Street. Wait, actually, that was when you were the Peasants. Oh, there was a Boston. You posted a song called Boston, and I like how you wrote. I can't remember who played drums. I thought that was hilarious. Because you did switch. You had a lot of different people in the band. Tell me about the early days and how you got started with the band and who the originals were, and up until you changed the name to the Peasants, because all the rage was a Velcro
Peasants. Yeah. So in '88, it was I was just going around to open mics. I was playing in the subway and I was going around to open mics, and I would write some songs and I'd go and I'd play them. And I was trying to meet other musicians and see if I could do something. And I was down at what's that bar we met at a couple of weeks ago? It used to be called something.
Harper's Ferry.
Harper's Ferry. I was at Harper's Ferry. It was like a Wednesday night, and there used to be a lot of blues jams in Boston. There was tons of blues in Boston.
Yeah,
and
I
all
remember.
these blues guys. And Rick Russell was running his open mic blues jam. And Rick was this big fat guy, glasses, and he was a really good blues guitar player. And so I went in there. I wasn't really a blues guitar player, but I could fake it. And I went up on stage. I was put up on stage with this chain smoking saxophone player, Bobby Starker. And I never met him. I didn't know him at all. And we just ended up on stage together. Like they're like, "Are you and you go up there and play?" And so I didn't really know any blues songs. And so me and Bobby looked at each other. We were both like rock and roll guys. And I said, "Do you know Tush by ZZ Top?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, we can play that." So we played Tush, and that was our version of a blues song. And it was
close enough.
It's blues. But these guys are kind of purists, and that's not really what they wanted to hear. And so pretty much after that song, we got the boot, and I grabbed Bobby and said, let's go get a case of beer and hang out and talk, and because I liked the way he played. And we went back to my place and we were just drinking and talking and exchanging songs and ideas, and we decided to form a band. And because we were like-minded, we both liked a lot of the same, the Ramones and the Replacements, and we came out of, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and so we decided to form a band. He was a songwriter. He was a really funny songwriter. He was really good, and he played saxophone like Bobby Keys from the Rolling Stones. That was like his role model, and he learned how to play saxophone listening to like Aerosmith records and copying the riffs. So he also could play by ear. He could play anything he wanted. So me and Bobby formed the Velcro Peasants. We wanted to be the Peasants, but there was another band in Boston that was already the Peasants, and they came to our first gig and showed us their copyright. And I was like, all right, I guess we can't be the Peasants, so we'll be the Velcro Peasants. And I don't know, that it meant nothing to us, and we just said, all right, we'll just put Velcro. We'll just attach Velcro to the Peasants, and that'll be our band name. And then we did auditions, and we found Cliff Goodman on the drums. He was from Swampscott, but he worked in Boston. he was like working for one of those financial companies, big financial companies. And then this other kid that was like a professional yuppie type guy who played bass, and he was a really good bass player. And that was Wayne Johnson. And so Cliff Goodman, Wayne Johnson, me, and Bobby formed the Velcro Peasants.
And you kept that name for a few years. You put the All the Rage. Do you remember recording All the Rage and where you recorded it? Because I didn't see the info on that, but
yeah, that was downtown. That was in it was a guy that had a studio. He was really good engineer, but he wasn't like a rock and roll engineer. And he was wanted me to play really clean and really, which was probably good because that record was very clean, no distortion, and very, very stark, very angry. All the rage, very, very angry. And that record, so we did a 10 song in some studio in South Boston. I don't even remember with who or what. And then Bobby quit the Peasants, and it was just me, Wayne, and Cliff. And because I was kind of a mess. I was drinking a lot, and I was hard to be around sometimes. I'll admit that. And so Bobby's like, I can't take this. I'm out of here. And so me, Wayne, and Cliff went in the studio and recorded that. And that record, All the Rage, was done I was early sober. I was like, I just quit drinking, and we did that record. So I quit drinking in 89, and we did that record in 90. And so that record was like somebody really stark raving sober, like not drinking, but definitely not happy. And that's what All the Rage is. That's why I called it All the Rage, because I was just angry all the time.
I figured out that I met you around right around the time Out on the Street came out. That's when I met. Yeah. So there was a little time in between there. What did you do during that time before that?
So I was Wayne quit, and then Peter Downing came in, and Pete was a really good bass player. And so me, Wayne, and Cliff were the Velcro Peasants. And then Bobby came back, and so it was a lot of like floating around. And so we had a 4-piece for a couple of years, and we were playing a lot. We were playing all over the place. And we were playing like all night in some clubs where you could play all night, you play some covers, and you actually get paid. And so we were doing that, and we were playing down in the Combat Zone at a place called Zoots. That was every month we were there, and that was a fun place to play. And we did a record. We just never put it out. It was like 15, 16 songs, live to 2-track. It was just basically us playing live in the studio, and we just recorded everything we knew. And it was like 15, 16 songs, but we never put it out.
Yeah.
And then that was in 92, maybe. And we went in the studio in 93, did 3 songs. In 94, we did a song. And then like around town in different little studios. And then me and Bobby left again. And then me and Pete got into a fight and broke up. And that was, we were playing at Toad in 94, like February
Cambridge
20th, 1994 in Cambridge. Yeah. And I went up to the bar in between the sets or whatever, and my arms were killing me. And I told the guy at the bar, I said, man, my arms are killing me. And he said, uh-oh, you got tendonitis. And it happens to a lot of guitar players that like strain their arms. And I was moving furniture, and I did carpet installation. I'd done all these horrible, physical labor jobs that I probably shouldn't have done because I'm not that big a guy. I mean, I weighed 130 pounds soaking wet. in high school. I've just never been a big guy, and I'm doing all these very physically demanding jobs, and I screwed up my shoulders. And once I screwed up my shoulders, the next thing that happened was, as I was playing guitar, my shoulders were now weak. My arms are trying to make up for it. And I got bad tendonitis. I couldn't. And that night, the guy at Toad said, if you don't stop playing guitar, you're going to end up like this. You're going to be like, you won't be able to do anything, you know? And so I stopped, and we broke up. Anyway, that night, me and Pete had a big fight. We broke up the band, and I got the death sentence with the tendonitis, and I didn't pick up a guitar for 2 years. And
That's what happened.
I had 2 operations on my shoulders. I still have the scars. So I had, they like put my shoulder was like hanging out of my arm, and they put my shoulder back in at Brigham and Women's. They were an amazing surgeon. Chorus, I think was his name. He fixed both of my shoulders.
Wow.
And it took 6 months for each shoulder. And I can't throw a ball anymore because my arm doesn't go back that far, but it's okay because I can play guitar and I don't care.
And you play it well.
So it took 2 years, man. 2 years. And yeah.
When I met you, you had put out the On the Street album. Steve Hart, that's when Steve Hart came around. He's been with you you and him have played together a lot. Several bass players, and I saw Frankie Butkus's name. So did you record that at New Alliance?
Yes,
Boston, with Frankie.
Well, we recorded 3 songs at New Alliance, and that later ended up Out on the Street. So we recorded 3 songs with Frankie in like 93 maybe, and then another song, What Was That? We recorded at Zippa Records, which was Pete Weiss.
Yeah, Pete.
And so we did that there. And then when we went back in the studio in 97, we just took those 4 songs and put them on the record.
Oh, they were older songs. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. They were from like pre-operation time. And then a bunch of new ones that I recorded with Steve Hart on drums and Billy Close on bass. Yeah.
I saw that version of the band a million times because you guys were playing a ton of shows around.
Yes.
I had just moved back to Boston around that time, and I remember probably right up until the Welcome to My Country record, you guys were really, really busy playing all the time. You guys were a great 3-piece band.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So I wanted to ask you about the cover for Welcome to My Country. I put that in my notes because it's a very interesting cover. What made you choose that for a cover, and what were you thinking when you picked that for a cover?
So I was mad about the Iraq War, and I was disgusted with like just the vapid shallowness of the United States, basically. And like growing up here, and everybody's watching TV, and it just felt like it's everybody. I don't know, it's not everybody, but just the invasion of Iraq and the just dumbed down culture, TV watching culture of the United States and the Western world, I guess. And I was just a malcontent. I was just angry about it. And I've always kind of been that way. And I needed cover art for this record that had songs about it, like mall cows and going out the window, and songs like just songs like that. Bobby's Down South, and one that comes to mind is Let Me Out. Let Me Out is a song about Jerry Springer and people beating each other up on television, and just vapid, stupid, everything bad about the United States, of our culture, just this stupid. So I asked a local artist who I can't remember her name now. She was around at the time, And I said, do you have anything? I described the record to her. Like, it's kind of anti-American, you know, it's kind of about the vapidness of our society. And she immediately just pointed to this painting she did of the Statue of Liberty, basically a lewd statue of, and she said that. And I said, really? And right away, it was perfect. And she said, yeah, you can use that. I'm like, right, I can use it? She goes, yeah, you can use that.
And controversy works too, you know. And I know exactly what you're talking about. That was a crazy time. It was like post, you know,
9/11,
9/11 and like Bush,
weapons of mass destruction.
the Bush era. People have forgotten how bad that was.
We're invading Iraq.
It was a bad time.
Yeah, it was just crazy, stupid. And so that's it. So that was it. And it was also kind of a revolutionary statement because everybody was so gung-ho America. Yeah, we're going to kill the terrorists. What terrorists? You know, where? In Iraq? You know, Iraq didn't do anything. And
it was horrible, man. I'm with you 100% on that. That was ridiculous. Yeah, because that record did get you a lot of attention. Do you feel like that's when the band really started peaking around that time?
Yeah, I think 97, 98, 99, when me, Billy, and Steev were playing, that was my favorite version of the Peasants, I guess.
And those guys are on Welcome to My Country too.
They're on all three. They're on the three. The triumvirate is Out on the Street, Welcome, and Love Your Enemy.
Love Your Enemy, which came out a few years after that, right?
2005.
Yeah.
Which was also like a reaction to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and just what was going on in the United States, cops shooting black kids on the side of the road, and just all that kind of stuff.
Did you start playing with? You started playing with some other people too after that, didn't you?
Yeah. It's hard to keep a band together when people want to do other things and they don't want to tour anymore. Like we toured a lot and in the late 90s, and I pretty much burnt out Steev and Billy. They didn't want to do it. It's hard to do. And we were older, you know, we were in our 30s and we were touring in a van, sleeping on the floor. You know, it's nobody wants to do that. So I had to like play with anybody that I could rope into going on the road with me because we're not going to make any money. And sometimes you're playing to the bartender, the waitress, and one homeless guy, you know? So, you know, it's hard to do that. So I play with a lot of different guys, and Steev was playing in other bands, so he wasn't even available. So I'd have Phil Derbogosian playing the drums, and I'd have Chris Hull playing bass, or Dave Lead playing bass, or you know, all kinds.
I've seen
had like thousands of, and around this time too, me and Ray started Beefy DC.
I was going to get to that. Before I get to that, I just want to talk to you for a minute about the Big Sunny Day album. Oh, actually, when did Big Sunny Day come out?
Like 10 years after all this. So because
you worked with Paul Koldery on that one, right?
Yes. Yeah. John Cohan. Do you know John Cohan?
Yes.
I was like, who do I get to mix this thing? Because I didn't want it to be just another local yokel record with a mediocre mix. It was a really good album. We recorded it in 2 really good studios. One with Milt in Brookline, and then with Dave Minahan and Dave
Westner.
Yeah. Dave Westner actually recorded it, and he did a phenomenal job. And so Woolly Mammoth was it's a great studio to record. They've got everything you need. So we did it there, and then I wanted to get it mixed by somebody who knew what they were doing. So Cohan said, "Why don't you call Coldery?" I'm like, "I don't know Paul Coldery." He's like, "Just call him. If he likes the record, he'll do it." So I sent him the record. I called him. I sent him the record, and he said, "I like it. I'll mix it." I'm like, how do I pay you? And he goes, and we figured it out. It wasn't that hard, you know. And
Yeah.
because Coldery's like rock star material,
Love
and
Paul Coldery.
yeah, he did a hell of a job. And that record, I'm glad we made it. It's a different kind of thing. It's mellower in a lot of ways than the Peasant stuff. But I had Steev on the drums, and I had Paul. So Billy Close moved to California, and he was like out in California, and so I knew Paul Kachansky from the Swing and Stakes. We used to play with them way back, and Paul's a great bass player. And
Excellent bass player.
yeah, and he played on Out on the Street before Billy Close. Like Billy Close was just learning how to play bass. He's a guitar player. He was in
Yeah,
the
from the
Freeze.
Freeze. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Billy was like learning how to play the bass, but wasn't quite confident with some of the songs. Some of the songs were pretty involved. So Paul Kachansky played on the more involved songs on Out on the Street. So he's kind of a also there's like a million guys that have been in the Peasants over the years. I've got like
I know
30 bass players and 15 drummers, but the main guys are, you know, Billy Close, Steve Hart, Billy O'Malley, Ted Kondo played one tour with us. It was like a who's who of
you play with Billy O'Malley. Why didn't I remember that?
that.
Wow.
We did a tour in the spring of '98. It was probably the most extensive tour we ever did. We did 34 shows in like 32
Wow.
days.
I think I
Yeah.
remember that. Billy O'Malley moved after that.
He moved to Vegas.
Yeah, because he was really good.
Oh, he's amazing. He's a
Seika. He
monster.
was in Seika.
Seika,
Yeah,
yes. Strip
Seika.
Mine, Seika.
Strip, yep.
Yeah.
Seika strip mine.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna bring up before
We
we'll
have a lot
see.
of questions.
Yeah, we'll save your newer tunes for later. But Beefy DC, of course, was on my list. I saw Beefy DC, and you guys had quite a buzz at
Yeah.
one time. And having seen you guys and being an enormous fan of the Bon Scott era, which a lot of your
Yeah.
stuff was based on, I was extremely impressed. Ray Needs, who's no longer with us,
Yep.
Bill
Yep.
Heifer Williams. Is that how you pronounce his name?
No, that's a joke. So all the names are
Oh,
fake names.
oh, I
So
thought that was his real name. Okay.
no, no, so that's Heifer Williams. So all the names are created out of beef,
Sorry.
basically. So I'm 100% Angus beef. Ray was Beefy DC. Ray was Beefy Scott instead of Bon Scott. And Heifer Williams was whoever the bass player was, probably like something Williams. And then the drummer was Phil Durwood, was the drummer.
Yeah.
And his name was Phil Cudd because cows. And then Bill was Milcom Young as opposed to Malcolm. So he's a cow. He's a milking cow. I don't know. And it was Ray's brainchild. It was Ray's brilliant idea. He always wanted to have a Bon Scott era ACDC cover band, tribute band with 5 really fat guys and call it Beefy DC. That was his idea. And he couldn't find 5 fat guys. So we decided, well, he's fat enough for all of us because he weighed like,
oh yeah,
350 pounds. Like, I think he weighed 375 at some point. So Ray was Beefy DC, and he was probably the greatest frontman I've ever played with.
But for the people out there listening or watching, you've got to go on YouTube and find the Beefy DC Harvard Square clip. It's fantastic. Yes. It's really good.
Beefy DC.
And a lot of people, so whoever was doing the camera work for that was, zooming on the people's faces, and a lot of them had the greatest expressions on their face. Oh, yeah. And but you won them over, man. You won the crowd over, and it was a big crowd, and I remember seeing you guys in a few clubs and stuff, and you
Yeah.
guys were just fan. I'm a huge Bon Scott fan, so I really dug that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Beefy DC was way fun. It was just it started out as a joke and it just went on for like 6, 7 years. Yeah. And
You
I made more money playing with that band than I ever did with the Peasants. We would show up at O'Brien's and sell the place out and make $1,000. And like that's unheard of in the Boston music world. I mean, coming from where we were coming from, you
at
know,
that time, yeah, yeah,
feel
you're
like we
right.
hit 100, you know.
Yeah. So I know you're playing with Dave Hull now, who's like an amazing musician. He's played with Buddy
Yes.
Miles, Joe Cocker, Pete Druge,
Yep.
Charlie Farron. He was in two bands with him. I saw him once with James Montgomery.
Yep.
I've seen him with John Butcher. I've seen him with a lot of people, and he's also filled in for Tom Hamilton whenever Aerosmith needed a bass player.
Yes.
So you're playing with someone who's like you, that's a lifelong musician. That must be
Yeah.
pretty thrilling. What kind of things are you guys doing together?
We're doing a bunch of Dave's songs. Dave made a record in 2012 or so called Pay Some Attention or Soul in Motion. I forget the name of the record, but we play a bunch of songs from that record. That's a great record. And there's a video online called Pay Some Attention. Dave Hull, Pay Some Attention. You can hear the song, see the video. It's a really good video. And then we play a bunch of covers that he likes from his era. So we played everything from his era of music. Like came up in the 60s with Jimi Hendrix, Buddy Miles, Aerosmith, all those bands. So we play Jimi Hendrix, we play Buddy Miles, we play David Bowie, we play some Warren Zevon because he really likes Warren. We
He
all like
played with
Warren.
Nugent too, didn't he?
Dave played with Ted Nugent. I think he recorded with Ted Nugent. He went in the studio with Ted
Yeah,
because Dave's a phenomenal bass player. So Dave's recorded. He toured with Joe Cocker too.
that's right. I left him off
Yeah,
my list, I
yeah.
think.
Joe
Yeah.
Cocker, Pete Droge, Aerosmith. He was in the first Joe Perry project. Dave and Joe
Oh,
Perry
yeah.
started the Joe
Yep.
Perry project. Dave was the other. They played one of Dave's songs, Buzz Buzz. It's on a Joe Perry record. So yeah,
You know,
Dave's world class.
when I was in college radio, I remember in 1983, I interviewed Dave and Charlie Farron. They had a band called The Enemy, and I interviewed those guys. That was
Wow.
before Fahrenheit, and then they became
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. But Dave is a great guy.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so you've also put some new stuff out. The Peasants have put some new stuff out recently too, right?
Last year.
Ben,
Yeah. Last well, actually this year. I wrote a bunch of songs and put a couple of them out. I just put them out on Bandcamp. Because it's just too hard to. I wasn't going to make a CD or do that whole thing. So, yeah, I've got 3 songs on Bandcamp that are new. One of them is "Bend Over and Take It Like a Man."
yeah, I listened to that. And the flu I
Well,
listened to. The flu
The
is another.
Flu.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
And you still get Steve Hart playing with you on those.
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, he plays on "Bend Over and Take It Like a Man." He kills it. And then the other two were Mike Peel on
Oh,
drums.
he's great.
Yeah, and
Mike's been on the show. He's an awesome drummer.
yeah,
Reverse,
yeah,
reverse.
yeah. Steve's like a very rock slash metal kind of guy. He can play anything, and he's an aggressive drummer. And for those other 2 tunes, I needed somebody that was mellower. I can't believe I'm saying that about the Peasants, but and Peel was in the studio playing. I was telling him I want you to play real quiet, and he said, people are going to listen to this song, and they're going to go, "Wow, when did the Peasants get so?" I know this isn't politically correct to say, but when did the Peasants get so gay? Because he was
Well,
playing really, really quiet, and he was using brushes, and
Wait a minute. Did he play Bend Over and Take It Like a Man? Because, that's
No,
kind of
Steev.
gay.
That's Steev Hart, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's definitely
And
Steev.
we're joking around when we're gay. We love
Yeah,
gay
we
people.
are. We're all gay. Yeah.
That's
We're
right.
happy about it.
Before I let you go, I saw you in the False Positives. Are you
Yeah.
in that band permanently, or are you filling in, or?
I'm in there for now. And like I was, since the Peasants aren't really doing anything right now, I just started playing. Somebody asked me to play a show, and then Dave was on that bill, and he asked me to play with him. And I like Dave. He's a sweetheart, and he writes good songs. So I still want to do my own thing, but I like playing guitar. I like playing lead guitar. And Dave, he writes these songs. He's like, just play whatever you want. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, just play whatever you want. Whatever you play, it's going to be good. Just play. So I love that. And then the same thing with Dave Howell. I love Dave, and it's a blast playing with him and Steev. They're just a phenomenal rhythm section. So Dave's the same way. He's like, just all right, just play, just play guitar. And I'm just loving doing this. It's nice to just play guitar and not have to be the leader of the band and the singer songwriter and all that. It's nice to just play guitar, because that's really what I started out doing. I love writing too and singing, but it's nice to play guitar. So I'm really liking playing with Dave Harrison, Dave Hull. If your name is Dave, I'll play guitar for you.
Well, maybe Minahan and you can get together and do some, since you guys are buddies. We love Minahan, so
yeah, I love Minahan too. I was just in Woolly Mammoth with this phenomenal keyboard player, Allison Lisance. And she had a bunch of songs, and she had one song she's like a jazz blues. She's a blues piano player. She can play anything. And she was in Girls Night Out. Remember Girls Night
yeah,
Out?
yeah.
She's the keyboard player of that band. And she has a band called Love Dogs that's still around. And she asked me to play on her record, which I was like, wow, she's a Berkeley jazz person. I'm not that. But she said, I want what you do on this record. So I went in, and again, she said, just play what you want. And Minahan was on that session, and I never recorded with Dave Minahan. He's phenomenal. He's incredible. He produces everything. He just has a sense of, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And he gives you the palette. So, okay, let's make the song. And he did that with Allison. He basically directed us without us even asking him to. And it came out really good. I haven't heard the final product yet, but so yeah, Minahan's great.
Yeah, you two, I can see you two working together. That's a match that works.
We played once together. We played in '97 at TT the Bears, and it was Dave Minahan and his loyal subjects, or loyal whatever, knights. Oh, Sir Dave Minahan and his loyal knights. It was a one-off. We were raising money for Stephen Fredette. Stephen Fredette was having some health issues.
I almost think I was at that show.
You probably
it sounds
were.
really familiar.
There was a bunch of Boston bands. We were all playing. It was a benefit show for Stephen at the TTs. I think there's video of it, and I played with Dave.
It was only 27 years ago.
Not too long ago. Yeah, and me and Dave were playing guitar. Billy Close was on the bass, and Kevin Shirtliff from Scissor Fight was on the drums. It was a really good.
He played with Dave in the Star Darts too, so those two guys had history.
Yeah, the Star Darts, right?
Yeah. Hey Pete, it's great talking. I knew I would. It was we just talked for an hour, man, and I knew that would happen because I like you, and I wanted to hear your history. I never knew much about your Long Island thing and stuff, and I wanted to ask you about that. And I hope you keep making music, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on here.
I'm sure I'll run into you in one of the club somewhere.
Yeah, you will. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for asking me.
My pleasure, man.
All right, man.